What's up, YouTube? Kyle here from Wrestling with Fans, and in this video we're taking a look at a little thing I did on episode 122 of the podcast, fantasy booking the debut of Retribution from Monday Night Raw. Now, what I did on the podcast is I just talked about each member, what alternate storylines they could have used, which would have allowed them to keep their regular wrestling name because everybody kind of knows who they all are anyway, and how they could have turned that into this whole Retribution angle. It was a lot of fun to come up with. I hope you guys enjoy it. Make sure, if you haven't done so already, listen to the Wrestling with Fans podcast. Links to find us in the video description below. And also make sure you click subscribe here on the YouTube channel. Hit the little bell icon to get notifications for all the brand new wrestling content we are bringing you each and every week. Without further ado, let's take a look to see how I would have fantasy booked Retribution's debut on Monday Night Raw. Now, me on the other hand, I have a pretty cool idea here. I'm going to talk about something. Being that the 5 core members of Retribution are all former members of NXT, they could have done this a lot better. They could have we're just going to pick up on everything that Retribution has done or said up until tonight's Monday Night Raw. Okay. Pre-reveal of the stupid names and the stupid masks. Now I'm going to fantasy book this from a fan's perspective here, okay? Let's start off with Dominik Dijakovic. Okay? We're going to keep first of all, we're going to keep these 5 under their regular names. We're going to stay Dominik Dijakovic. We're going to stay Mia Yim. We're going to stay Dio Madden. We're going to stay Shane Thorn. We're going to stay Mercedes Martinez. Okay? So let's start with Big T-Bar, with Dominik Dijakovic. Okay? He reveals himself as Dominik Dijakovic still. And he can talk about, how pissed off he is that Keith Lee got called up to the quote-unquote main roster, that he feels he got passed over. He can talk about all the wars and the great, amazing matches that the two of them had, and said that he deserved as much opportunity as Keith Lee did. And he feels like he got passed over, that he got overlooked for somebody else. He can even make someone, a flash in the pan, someone who's older. I mean, Keith Lee is a little older. He's in his late 30s. Dominik Dijakovic is a little younger. He could have played that into it. He's already been in this game for a while. Like, you need a young blood be called up. Play that into it. So there's how Dominik Dijakovic could be introduced. Sticking with the Keith Lee theme here, let's jump right into Mia Yim. Okay? Now, for those of you unaware, Mia Yim is not only the on-screen girlfriend of Keith Lee, but the real-life girlfriend. They're a real couple on and off screen, okay? So you can play Mia Yim kind of in a similar way that Dijakovic is playing here. That Lee got called up to NXT. She feels like she got left behind. He's not calling. He's not answering text. Something like that, She can play it like she feels that he's got a big head, that his ego is getting the best of him. She can say, that he didn't fight to bring me along with him up to Monday Night Raw. She feels betrayed. So now she's going to, destroy Monday Night Raw because she feels that Monday Night Raw went to Keith Lee's head and has changed him. Even though we may not see it in his character as he's been portrayed on Raw. But as, a real-life couple, she's going to see a different side of him that we don't get to see. So they could use that angle to why Mia Yim is in Retribution. Okay? Let's talk about Dio Madden, the gentleman now known as Mace. Okay. Now, Dio Madden I had to think about for a little bit. But then I came up with something really good because I remembered that Dio Madden was on the Raw commentary team about a year ago. If you remember, he was sticking up for the other commentators when Brock Lesnar attacked and gave him an F5 through a table. We haven't seen Dio Madden since. So you play that as the reason why he wants Retribution. Okay? He says that once he healed from the attack, he wasn't brought back to the commentary table, that they moved on without him, and that he feels like he wasn't given a proper chance to get his spot back. And he was basically all but forgotten for the last year. You turn these real life situations into an angle because it works. And I think in this situation with Retribution, for what they originally stood for, or what we thought they stood for, or what the perception that it was given to us what they stood for, I think that works really well for the three of them. Okay? Let's move on to Slapjack. Slapnuts. Shane Thorn. Okay? Shane Thorn is probably the most difficult one. I had to come up with an idea here for him. Okay? So Shane Thorn can talk about how he was always stuck in tag teams. He was signed to a tag team, TM61. He talking about he was never given a chance to shine on his own, that he was always stuck being somebody's partner. He was never given an opportunity to be his own man, to grab that proverbial brass ring in solo action. Okay? Then, talk about how MVP tried to use him because Shane Thorn and Vic something, I can't remember the guy's name, I had it in my head earlier, but I can't remember it. They were on Raw back around April, and MVP was using them to do matches against Ricochet and Cedric Alexander. He could talk about how he was pretty much a pawn for MVP to try to go after Ricochet and Alexander because he couldn't get the job done himself. And that he feels like MVP just used him as a pawn to further his own game. Which would make sense now that Retribution is feuding with the Hurt Business. That's how you tie that all in together, okay? And then finally, let's get to Mercedes Martinez. I had to do a little research on this one. I had to dig a little bit to come up with a good idea for her introduction into Retribution. For those of you who don't know, Mercedes Martinez has been around for a long time. I think she first broke into the business in the mid to late 2000s. So she's been around for over 10 years. She has been around. She's worked the indies. She's been all over the world. She even made an appearance in AEW at the All Out Battle Royal last year. But for Mercedes Martinez, she can talk about how WWE refused to give her a chance for over a decade until she was finally brought in for the Mae Young Classic in 2017, where she won her first 3 matches before losing in the quarterfinals to the eventual winner, Shayna Baszler. So she gets this shot, she wins a few matches, she makes the quarterfinals, and then she loses. Then she's never heard from or seen again. Until earlier this year, they brought her back in, but put her in NXT. And she can kind of play like, someone of her qualifications with her experience. She shouldn't have to be around a bunch of, quote, rookies and, quote, trainees. Kind of play into that. Then because she was a part of the Robert Stone brand, she could say she even tried to align herself with Robert Stone to get noticed, only for them to drop her like a bad habit when she lost one match. When she lost that match to Rhea Ripley, Robert Stone announced she wouldn't be a part of the Robert Stone brand anymore because obviously she was being pulled up for a Raw part of Retribution. So they can kind of play that into that angle that, she's been around forever. They gave her one chance. She made it through this tournament pretty far, but then they just kind of dropped her. They didn't give her any other opportunities. Only to bring her back 3 years later and put her around a bunch of rookies and, performance center trainees. She tries to get noticed, but they drop her because she lost one match. So that right there is how I would how I would have fantasy booked Retribution last night on Raw, as far as their introduction to Monday Night Raw. I think for all 5 of them, it makes a lot more sense. It's very believable. It's very realistic. It calls upon past storylines and real-life situations, which I think you have to pull from a lot of times to make a good and believable story. So that's my fantasy booking of Retribution from last night. Alright guys, so there you have it. That's my take on the Retribution debut. What maybe I would have done differently and incorporated their existing gimmicks and their existing characters into this storyline. And I kind of think it makes sense, at least to me. But let me know what you think. Sound off in the comments below what you liked, what you didn't like, what you would do differently in bringing Retribution onto Monday Night Raw. Make sure you listen to the podcast. We live stream the recording every Tuesday evening at 8 p.m. Eastern on our Facebook page. Links will be in the video description below. New podcasts are uploaded every Thursday morning at 6 a.m. just in time for your morning commute to work. Links for that will also be in the description below. And make sure you subscribe to us right here on YouTube for more wrestling content each and every week. Once again, my name is Kyle. Thank you all for watching. We'll see you all next time right here on Wrestling with Fans.